Hello everybody and welcome back to the Asian Athletic, and we have yet another round of Asian Champions League Elite fixtures to go ahead and review. The format of this video is going to be slightly different. I'm going to go firstly through all the fixtures from the West group, followed by the fixtures from the East group. I'm doing it this way just because personally I find the East group games more interesting. I don't really find Saudi Arabian, Qatari and Emirati football as interesting as the other stuff, so I generally have less to say about these games. That being said, I'm not going to neglect them. However, a team that has been neglected, which is the fixture that I'm going to talk about first, is Nasaf, who lost 2-1 to Wahda. I have no idea what is happening at Nasaf right now, if I'm honest. It looks like the wheels have completely come off. Their season is taking a turn for the worst. Since their loss to Shabab Ahli in the Champions League, they still haven't won a game. They drew 1-1 with AGMK and 0-0 against Johor. Now, they were always going to struggle in the Asian Champions League Elite. They're definitely the weakest team in the entire tournament across both groups. But against Wahda, this was basically mission impossible. Buriram actually scored the first goal. Nasaf scored the first goal, and it was world class. Moments like that show that Nasaf aren't necessarily terrible. Nasaf, they actually score goals quite easily. I've never been concerned with their attacking output whatsoever. But defensively, they aren't good enough. That's just it. The attacking talent present in the West is simply too good for them. I can't think of a single team in the West that would struggle against Nasaf's defence. I look at some of the performances from Nasaf this season so far, and I actually do feel really bad. The likes of Nemetov, Buriram, Sidikov, I'm really impressed by them, but it's not enough. And given their terrible domestic form, it doesn't look like they'll be performing any miracle underdog stories. They have Tractor next, and they'll likely lose that too. And I think for Nasaf, I know it's a bit early, I think that's where the road ends for them. Duhail 4, Shabab Ahli 1. A much needed win actually for Duhail, who haven't won a single game in the Champions League so far. As the scoreline suggests, it was a really solid performance from Duhail. They went into this game with a 3-1 loss to Al Rayyan and a 3-1 loss to Gharafa, so really not good, especially if you know how much I rate Gharafa right now. But they turned it up a notch and they had a great game, a lot of which I credit to Buriram, who was running the game from start to finish. Ahli just couldn't get any form of control over the game. It's a great corner goal from Breno, but I'd say that's more down to a lapse of concentration from Duhail than it is anything else. Duhail just had chances after chances after chances after chances. They scored goals for fun this game and absolutely carved Ahli apart. Ahli, please learn how to defend a corner. I've seen Sunday League teams defend corners better than this. The defending for the Beauregard goal was hilarious. Why are you running away from the ball? That goal sums up everything there is to be said about the game, if I'm completely honest. Oh, and by the way, as a side note, the penalty wasn't a penalty. So all of you who believe everything is skewed towards Qatar, you have something else to add to your conspiracy theories. Tractor 1, Shorta 0. What a game from Buriram. Absolutely outrageous. I haven't been particularly convinced by Tractor this season in all competitions, to be honest. Aside from their 5-0 win over Sharjah, I think they've been a little bit disappointing. In the league, they've been thoroughly mid and boring. They picked up 4 draws, which were all 0-0 draws except one, which is a 1-1 draw. So not an entertaining side by any means. They weren't actually that great, by the way, and if it wasn't for Buriram, they would have lost by plenty of goals. He was unreal. Shorta once again showing their attacking quality. A good game from Mawas once again. I'm a really big fan of him, and I like Sadoun as well. He combined well with Ali Hussein on the right side. But like I said last week, who cares if you look good when you don't win? Looking at their Champions League fixtures, this was probably the one game they had to win if they wanted to go further in this competition, because now they have to play Al Hilal, Al Ahli, Nasaf and Duhail. They'll probably beat Nasaf, but the others, maybe they'll snatch a draw from Shorta or maybe Duhail, but that's a strong maybe. Before the game, I was thinking, if they don't shock Tractor here and do a smash and grab 3-point win, their Champions League campaign is over. They didn't shock Tractor, and I'm saying it's already over for Shorta, I'm afraid. Tractor though, you lucky sods. Unbeaten in all games with a nice goal difference, and all around, looking good on paper. On the pitch though, they're terrible. But a win is a win, right? Al Hilal 2, Gharafa 1. I'm already bored of talking about Al Hilal, so I'm going to keep this as brief as possible. They were amazing once again. They dominated in every area of the game. Gharafa get punished once again for reasons I've mentioned in the last video and the video before that. They looked complacent, they just didn't look prepared. So yeah, obviously they lost. Hilal just sort of played with their food a little bit. They were just so dominant. It's nothing surprising though when you look at their team. They've got one of the best wingers in Asia in Al-Tasari, Kayo Cesar on the other side, some of the best midfielders all of Asia, Neves and Milinkovic-Savic, who, by the way, didn't even play because of injury, and Hilal looked completely fine without him. Hernandez at left back, Cancelo at right back, Koulibaly in front of Bono. Unreal team. It's the FC Hollywood of Asia. Al-Hamdan started for Hilal and he was actually quite good. But what else is there to actually say? They win once again. And because I've got nothing else to say in case you're interested, Mason Holgate started this game for Gharafa and was kind of terrible. Even worse was Aaron Gunnarsson, if you remember him from his Cardiff and Iceland days. He's still out there playing pro football. Can you believe it? But in a nutshell, more of the same from Hilal. I don't think there's going to be anything more to say about them until we reach the knockout stages of this tournament. Ahli 2, Al Sadd 1. Al Sadd were never going to win this game against Ahli, in my opinion. Like I mentioned last time, Ahli have not lost a game of competitive football for literally ages. Funny though, because in the first half, I'd argue that Al Sadd were actually surprisingly better. They managed to find some gaps on Al Ahli's wings. Akram Afif was involved throughout and he looked pretty good. However, the difference maker was Al Ahli's much more clinical finishing. Al Sadd had the majority possession, more chances, more shots on target, but Al Ahli, very simply, could put the ball in the back of the net. And that's the story of Al Ahli in the last few weeks, really. Very simply, they win. Doesn't matter how, they win. And it should be real red flags now for Al Sadd because they ought to be going to the next round, in my opinion, fairly comfortably. I understand it's a very competitive group this season, but Al Sadd, with the way that they're doing, they are playing with fire. Barsham, once again, let them down. If Al Sadd get knocked out in the group stage, then I really think they need to evaluate Barsham's role in the team because at the very least, he is not good enough for the Champions League Elite. Akram Afif had a good game, but that's all I can say about Al Sadd. Al Ahli, on the other hand, real smash and grab. Like I said before, it wasn't the prettiest game of football, but they made it work. Good goals from Goncalves and Mahrez. I think from the second half onwards, you just felt there was only really one more goal in the game. It's just that gut feeling you have when you're watching football. Like, you know there's only one more goal, and it won't be from the team with the most chances. Lo and behold, Goncalves smashes it in, and yeah, that's all she wrote. Al Ittihad 3, Sharjah 0. Al Ittihad look well and truly at their best. I think there were some doubts due to their first two losses in September against Al Wahda and Al Ahli, but their 4-1 victory against Al Shorta and then their emphatic victory now has really shown Al Ittihad's best side. They did lose to Al Hilal in the league though, which is a game that essentially now separates Al Ittihad from the rest of the main pack in the Saudi Pro League and has cemented the fact that this is indeed a rubbish season for Al Ittihad. Steven Bergwijn continues his good form this season. That is now his 6th goal this season in 9 appearances in all comps. Speaking of good performances, Diaby once again looked fantastic. I was a critic of this guy a while back, but his performances in the Champions League have massively improved. And I was thoroughly impressed with his creativity on the right wing. And his assist for Benzema was genuinely amazing. It's one of the best you'll ever see. It's just a shame that he didn't score his chance in the first half where he went around Al Hossani. Whilst we're on the subject of the first half, I just want to touch on that really weird chance. Kante receives a long ball on the left wing and he's got plenty of space. He cuts inside and he weaves a beautiful, beautiful ball into Karim Benzema, who leaves it for Bergwijn, I think. But Kante's pass doesn't quite have the speed, so it just sort of passes through Benzema and decelerates into the foot of a confused Bergwijn, who I don't think was expecting that. Then Rashid slides in and clears it towards his own net. Sharjah get incredibly lucky that Benzema and Bergwijn got confused over the ball and messed things up. They're also equally lucky that Rashid didn't blast it into his own net, because that was incredible. A deserved win for Al Ittihad. Now they just need to put some more effort into their league form. Now onto the more interesting side, in my opinion, the East. And we'll start with Seoul versus Chengdu Rongcheng, which ended 0-0. I think both teams were itching for a win here, in the sense that they're both in pretty underwhelming form as of late, and a win here would have propelled them into some positive momentum, both in the domestic competition and in the continental one. Seoul hadn't kept a clean sheet for 5 games and they lost 2-0 to Shanghai Shenhua last time. Meanwhile, Chengdu's title race was in trouble because of some really patchy league form, including a 2-1 loss to Henan and a draw against Qingdao West Coast. A draw that they only got because of a 100th minute goal from Felipe. So going into this game, I was expecting a proper throw the kitchen sink at it type game, sort of balls to the wall, rock and roll football, but it was just awful. Probably the worst game of the tournament. Genuine snooze fest. Neither team could make a single good chance. If they got anything remotely close to resembling a chance, they would just balloon it. It's probably more damning actually for Chengdu than Seoul, just because Seoul have Shanghai Port next, whereas Chengdu have Sanfrecce Hiroshima. Seoul might get a result from their game, who knows, but Chengdu, I think they're going to get battered by Sanfrecce Hiroshima, I can't lie to you. You have to remember that the East group is a lot more competitive than the West, so sure, Chengdu may have a chance to claw their way back in the next few games, but they seem way too inexperienced in this tournament. And also, I think I would prefer to prioritise my efforts in the league anyway, focus on that title. FC Seoul, on the other hand, they don't have too much to play for anymore in comparison. I suppose Champions League 2 qualification? They have more experience and skill to put more effort into this tournament than Chengdu do. A point for Seoul here is bad for sure, no doubt, but it feels like 2 points dropped rather than a loss. For Chengdu though, this will feel more like a loss. But who knows, I hope I'm proven wrong because I have a big soft spot for Chengdu Rongcheng. Melbourne City 2, Machida Zelvia 1, Aurelio Vidmar. Please accept my formal apology for slandering you so often. You must have seen my video from about 3 weeks ago and taken the feedback because the game management here was the complete opposite to what it was like just a few weeks ago. Stellar from Melbourne City, absolutely stellar. Their team is literally a bunch of children. Their bench is literally a bunch of children. 22-year-old Patrick Beach, the goalkeeper, he was absolutely fantastic in net. I was also quite impressed by Harrison Shillington, the 20-year-old. Not an insane performance, but for someone who hasn't had nearly as much first team experience as others on the pitch, it was a good, solid performance. And then for Beckham Baker, he's literally 17, okay? Sure, it wasn't a performance for the ages, but it was a really brave performance from him and an even braver decision from Aurelio Vidmar to start him at all. Unlucky for Machida Zelvia, who came up against an unbelievable Patrick Beach, but that isn't the story. The story is that a bunch of Australian teenagers beat one of Japan's best teams. Sanfrecce won, Gangwon 0. Okay, more K-League insanity. Where do I even begin with this game? Well, Sanfrecce probably. They're firmly out of the Japanese title race, I'd say at this point. So their full attention is basically on this tournament. And then a handful of J1 League games just so they can qualify for continental football again. Gangwon, on the other hand, have just been having non-stop draws since the K-League final stage began. I gave them a lot of praise for their win over Vissel Kobe, but that looks more like an anomaly than anything because the way that they have fallen off is insane. They haven't won a K-League game since the start of September. It's incredible how far they have fallen because if you watch my K-League video, you can see that I have a lot of good things to say about Gangwon. But yeah, their form has made my video age terribly, so thanks guys. Neither team in the first half could really string any good attacking movements together, but the second half is where it gets interesting and so typically and hilariously K-League. Pak Ho-young plays an awful back pass which goes straight to Mitsuki Kato. It's blocked by a defender. Then the ball bounces into the air and Pak Ho-young is there, again, and heads it away straight back into the path of another Sanfrecce attacker who is completely unmarked. He shoots it straight at the keeper, who then can't get it under control and spills it, and then Kato is just there for some reason and smashes it into the roof of the net. So yeah, chaos. Also, that's all that happened. Nothing else. That's the game. K-League teams just poison every game of football, I swear. Pak Ho-young, you're not getting the plane home, you should get the ferry instead. Buriram United 2, Shanghai Port 0. I love Chinese football, but what are you doing? Stop making me look like an absolute moron. Yeah, this week was an absolute stinker for CSL teams, and Shanghai Port absolutely stunk out the gaff. If I'm correct, and someone please comment if I'm wrong, Buriram United haven't lost a home game in the Champions League since last November, a year straight. Meanwhile, Shanghai Port lost to Shandong Taishan. Buriram United were fantastic. They've really impressed me in the Champions League so far. Their only really disappointing moment was when they lost to Seoul 3-0 in September, but aside from that, there has been nothing that would trigger any alarm bells for me, if that makes sense. It's all been pretty good. Ittihad scored this game. What a player he is. Great little sliding dink, a great assist from Zulj. Buriram, they play some great football. It's not just for the looks, but also the results. Take a look at their domestic form, and it is ridiculous. They haven't lost in the Thai League since April. And I know the Thai League can have some big skill gaps, but Buriram have proven that they can do it on the big stage in the Champions League as well. Buriram, they did a good job of exploiting set pieces. They overloaded that box and used the height of their players to get plenty of free headers. Curtis Good, Kenneth Dougal, Ko Myung-sok. Like, they're all massive and they were just crowding out Yan Junling. Wei and Browning had pretty poor games, so they weren't able to support Yan in these aerial duels, even though that would normally be how they would play. Every corner for Buriram just sort of felt like a penalty at points. Shanghai Port just felt so vulnerable. They didn't just completely give up though. Like, I mean, they weren't terrible, but if I had to sum them up in one word, it would be unprepared. They just didn't look like they were ready to play against such an organised attacking side. I don't think crosses from deep or from the byline are really the most effective way to set up chances that are beneficial for the strikers that they played on that day. From what I can gather, it seems like Shanghai Port's creativity was being strangled by Buriram's defence and back three, especially Kausic, Stojkovic and Co. They crowded out the midfield and made it really hard for Shanghai's wingers to cut inside or feed passes through the middle, so they were forced to cross from deep, and none of the Shanghai Port players looked like they could do anything with those chances, even though a few looked pretty promising. Maybe a striker with a different profile would have done better, and Shanghai Port actually might have been able to draw this game. Vissel Kobe 1, Ulsan HD 0. Time to talk about my favourite football team, Ulsan HD, my beloved. I'm actually quite sad that they lost this because I was just loving their invincible streak in the Champions League, even though they're absolutely terrible. I think we were always expecting a Vissel Kobe victory, but Ulsan HD are always an unpredictable side, so predicting this game is not always as clear as it seems. Vissel Kobe really seized this game though, and they did a great job overwhelming that terrible Ulsan defence. I really love Jean-Patrick's goal. The way he took a touch in the air with his back to goal, he pivots on the spot and slots it into the bottom left corner. I love that. It's just pure filth. Ulsan HD did sort of try get back into the game in the last 15 minutes or so, but no real concrete chances to the point where Vissel Kobe looked particularly worried. That being said, I don't think Ulsan were actually that bad. Well, actually not, they were still pretty terrible, but what I mean is for Ulsan HD standards, not too bad. Overall, a mid performance, let's just say. Ultimately, the better side won. Johor 3, Shanghai Shenhua 1. So Johor had another solid game, this time against Shanghai Shenhua, who are a side I've been fairly lenient towards despite their performances. Now let's see who scored for Johor here. If I speak, I'm in big trouble. I'm going to ignore that because I don't want to start a war in the comments. But if you do want to fight, please fight in the comment section of this video. Thank you. Anyway, back to the game. Johor were unreal. Bursting with attacking creativity, you could see the confidence in the veins of those players. It was a beautiful thing to watch. From the off, they were peppering that Shanghai Shenhua goal. They were fantastic at keeping the pressure on. Although they didn't score until the second half, the question of a goal was less of when, but more how many. Their chances were just that many and that good. Shanghai Shenhua, they really just couldn't keep up. I don't think Shanghai Shenhua lacked the attacking assets for this game. I think they've got some pretty decent options actually. Asaway is a great striker / winger. I've always liked Shinichi Chan. But what they lacked was the possession and the means to keep it, because they had no possession this game. So none of these great attacking players could make an impact on this game because the whole time they were scrambling to defend against Johor, who were just all over them. Arif Ayman was fantastic, by the way. He absolutely terrorized that Shanghai Shenhua defense. The first goal was a result of Ayman's skill, but also Shanghai Shenhua's lack of pace. The way Silva sort of teleports to the back post shows perfectly Shanghai Shenhua's inability ability to keep up with the pace that was set by Johor. And because Johor set the pace, they could play the game exactly how they wanted to, and as a result came away with a very confident 3-1 victory. Shanghai Shenhua, on the other hand, go home a little bit worried about the future of their Champions League Elite campaign. So that was this week's Asian Champions League Elite roundup, and if you're interested in the content that I make sure that you subscribe for more, and also check out the community posts. There you can actually put suggestions for what you want to see in future videos, and a few of the videos that I've made so far have actually come from audience suggestions, so I am always reading the comments. Make sure you follow our Instagram, the link is in the description. There you can keep up to date with all things Asian football. You'll find cool posts, mood boards, and so much more. And as always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you later.